Hello and welcome to our session on pitching case studies. In this session, my objective is to walk you through a number of pitches that I've received in my past 6 years as part of my work. These are pitches that have stood out for a wide variety and range of reasons, and my objective is to showcase these pitches to illustrate some of the topics and concepts that we covered in our earlier pitching for startup course. Before we jump into reviewing pitches, I just wanted to quickly walk you through the framework that we've presented and that we've spoken about earlier. All entrepreneurs or ideas or concepts generally start off with the perception that the market exists for a given need. Now, this need is linked directly to customers, and if I were to, let me just pick a pen, there we go. This need is linked specifically to customer, and that customer has a given pain that needs to be addressed. We go out and create products, and these products sit at the intersection of the pain point that we've spoken about. But the biggest challenge that entrepreneurs face, that new businesses face, and the biggest reason why businesses fail is that while we may do a great job in building a product for a given customer pain point, we may do a great job in identifying a need and sizing a market, the area where most startups fail is at the intersection of the selling process. This is the area where we have the biggest challenges and the biggest problems. It's converting markets, customers, products into sales. So if you put this into a sequence of steps, you may have a great idea. You can translate that idea into a prototype. The prototype converts into a product. The product converts into a process or a mechanism for accessing a channel for selling it, and then that goes on to generating sales. And then the biggest challenge that you face as an entrepreneur is basically creating scale, right? So if you look at the sales process looks at a handful of basic components. The first is the voice of the customer. How well do you understand who your customer is? The second is figuring out how to present a product or a solution or an idea to a customer so that he or she may buy it. Then is that whole iterative exercise where you try and price the product to a point where the market is ready to buy it and you're ready to sell it. And then there's your prospect list of 10 people or 20 people or 30 people or 100 people you can call, and then there is follow-up, right? That basically embodies the sales process. And then we go out and link it to we go out and link what we just done before to the customer by creating or identifying the voice of the customer, which we define as his pain points. How do we reach him? The demographics that describe him, and a custom pitch that is comprised of the insights that we've identified and covered by covering these 3 points. Okay. And then your business model is basically what are you selling, who's buying it, for how much, how frequently, and how do you make money. That sort of embodied itself in the business model. So now the pitching case studies that I'm going to present, I'm going to take a small instance of the 3 or 4 concepts that we quickly reviewed and refreshed, and I'm going to highlight why I think that case study really stood out as far as my impression or my memory of that pitch is concerned. So let's move on to the presentations that we've been talking about. Here's a quick list of the companies that we're going to walk through today. Googa Nights, Heels on Wheels, Rentabag, Couch Potatoes, Rakan Chill, Gulf Manufacturing, and Vivo. A common theme across all of these presentations are that they were all made as part of the Executive MBA and the Global MBA program at SP Jain. They were made by students who had attended a class on entrepreneurship with me, and over a period of 6 days we worked together to take a concept from a basic 1-paragraph write-up to a full-fledged executive summary and a PowerPoint pitch. Over the last 5 years, I think I've received over 500 pitches at the SP Jain program, and I think these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, these 7 pitches are the ones that I still remember. These are the ones that are really, really memorable. The reason why they stand out, one obviously, as I said earlier, even 5 years later, these pitches are pitches that stand out in my memory, and I think about whenever I want to talk about or showcase how to go about presenting a concept. These are the 5 or 6 that come to my mind. So they were memorable. They were all winners in the batches when they were presented. There was an enormous amount of passion and energy in the team that put these together and presented them. and at least a handful of them had enough work behind them to make them really, really credible. We spoke about in the Pitching for Startup course, we spoke about building credibility as a presenter and as an entrepreneur. And at least I think there are about 2 or 3 presentations in this group that are exceedingly credible. And then I think the one that we'll actually start off with, speaks about how to get a very complex message across. It's quite common within the technology industry to build a very complex technology product or a business product or a domain specific product that your ordinary audience may not be able to appreciate. One of the things that these pitches do is, at least in 2 instances, they take some very complex concepts and present them in a very, very easy to understand fashion. Alright, so the first pitch, the first presentation that I want to show you, and I'm not going to show you the entire pitch. This is a product that when the group spoke about, none of us could get. And I think there were about 50 students in the class, and they kept on saying that we are going to go out and sell clustered water. We are going to go out and sell clustered water. And we kept on asking them, what is clustered water? The interesting thing is that the group of 4 students who made this presentation were able to zero on to the fact that as far as the class and the judges were concerned, it was difficult for them to appreciate. It was really difficult for them to appreciate what exactly clustered water meant. And their entire pitch rode on the fact that if their audience could appreciate what clustered water meant, their job would become so much easier to work with. So here's what they did. They showed us 2 slides. And the first slide said, do you know the water that we drink looks like? And do you know we drink about 5 to 8 glasses of this water on a daily basis? This is how this water looks like. And if you look at this, you've got the basic H2O molecule, and then you've got here, there you go. You've got pollutants, which is the stuff in blue and purple, and then you've got chlorine in the water, which is the stuff in orange. Right? So they said, do you know how the water we drink looks like? This is how it looks like. And we drink more than 5 glasses a day of this water every day. Imagine what it does to our insides. This is the first slide. This is the opening slide. And then they show us the next slide. Now imagine water with 0 pollutants and 0 chlorine. That is clustered water. Right? So if you go back to the previous slide, the combination worked very well. Now the funny thing is, if you actually dig deeper and look a little deeper, you can actually see that the molecule that they've shown you is actually not water. You've got calcium, you possibly have fluorine, you have sodium, you have zinc, and you may have a handful of other components. But the really funny thing is that when you were sitting at the back of the audience, you saw this, which was sort of a big mess, and then you saw this. And most people were not able to zero into the fact that this water is not a water molecule. The other interesting thing is, they were able to, if you see this is what really made the difference for the audience, because the base was exactly the same. Right? So the Vivo project presented by Philip, Vidya, and I think was another colleague and group partner of theirs. The Vivo project was completely dependent on the ability of the audience to grasp the concept that they were selling, and I think they did a really good job of sequencing 2 slides one after another that introduced the concept of clustered water to their audience. No, they didn't talk about the research, they didn't talk about the formula, they didn't talk about the process. They said, look, this is what clustered water looks like, this is what we think you should drink, this is what we know a lot of people are now switching to. We have a supplier of this water who will source it for us, and then we'll simply go out and sell it in the UAE market. The project in this specific case was based on the market in the Middle East. So this is group number 1, presenting a very complex project or concept with visuals, not necessarily visuals that are accurate in this specific case, but visuals that are successful in conveying the point that you want to make. All right, so now onwards to group number two. Group number two, Googa Nights, is I think one of the best presentations that I've received over the last 5 years, and it stands out for a number of reasons. And we'll spend a fair bit of time on Googa Nights mainly because of the good work that was done by this specific group. I think over the years I've learned to appreciate. Actually, I've learned more reasons to appreciate the work this group did all the way back in December 2009. Right. So now, who is the target market, or what's the primary concept? The primary concept that Googa Night focused on was that if you're a foreign tourist who was visiting India for the first time, and specifically within India who was visiting Rajasthan for the first time, there was not a lot to do other than sightseeing. And if you wanted to do fun activities, if you wanted to do a day of physical activities that would both engage you, allow you to interact with the environment, as well as be interesting, exciting, and fun, there was literally nothing available, or there still isn't literally anything available in India, specifically within Rajasthan, other than going out for a day tour that shows you all the sites there are to see from a history point of view. And if you're not in history, too bad. So Googa Nights' focus and concept was that if you're coming to Rajasthan, and when you're done with sightseeing and you still have another 5 days to kill, come on over and we'll show you the fun side of Rajasthan. And from the fun side of Rajasthan, they basically said, look, the people that we want to focus on from a customer specific point of view, we're not looking at the oldies. So we're looking at basically the younger crowd between the ages of 18 and 30 years. That's one. We're also not looking for individuals who can't afford. We want people who can at least spend about $200 a head, right? We want people who want to learn more about culture, who are independent, and are looking for unique experiences in ethnic environments, and are adventurous and risk-taking, and are at the same time are oblivious and carefree, right? So that's a customer profile. So again, one thing that Googa Nights did a great job of was be as specific as possible. 18 to 30 years old who can spend about $200, who are curious, who are looking for interesting experiences in new ethnic environments, adventurous, risk-taking, oblivious and free, and obviously are foreigners who are visiting Rajasthan for the very first time. Now it takes us to the next stage, and the next stage is, almost every other presentation that I see, when I ask them about their marketing plan, about their outreach plan, they come out and say, we will use social networking websites such as Facebook, Twitter, and MySpace to get our message out. Did you hear that? If that annoying tone really grated on your nerves, that's exactly what happens to me when I hear the line used in any pitch that says, I'll have an active social media campaign that'll use Facebook, Twitter, and MySpace to get my message out. That's not how it works. You actually have to be a lot more specific than saying I'm going to use Facebook, Twitter, and MySpace, right? And I think one of the reasons why I loved Googa Nights was that these guys were specific. So they said, look, yes, we understand that there is an enormous amount of opportunities on the web to get a message across, but we are going to focus on online expat communities and blogs. So that certainly is a lot more specific and helps. One. Two, we will partner with travel websites. And again, not all travel websites, but for example, makemytrip.com and yatra.com. So again, specific. But where it got interesting was the offline piece. So we're not completely reliant on the online piece. There is a large part of a market that can be reached offline. And this offline piece includes people who come through travel agents. So we must tell travel agents about what we do and offer them a relationship or an arrangement where they get a fee of every referral that make to us. Then there are a lot of corporate MNCs that are interested in doing something in India from a hosting point of view, from a travel point of view. So I want to host a 10-day or a 5-day or a 3-day or a 2-day bonding corporate retreat, strategic planning offsite retreat, marketing offsite retreat, marketing celebration retreat, campaign conclusion celebration. So there, if you go through this list, there is an enormous list of stuff that corporate MNCs want to do, and of all the things, everybody is looking for something which is unique, something which is breathtaking, something that people will talk about, something that the market will talk about. That these guys went out and did this, right? And that's the group that Ooga Booga Nights wanted to focus on. They said, we have a great story to tell, and when we tell the story, there is a reasonable chance that people will come, given the value that we create for them. So that's two. The third piece was in-flight magazine adverts on the Delhi-Jaipur bound flights. Why the Delhi-Jaipur bound flights? Because if you're coming into Rajasthan and if you're a foreign tourist and you're taking the air, the primary connection that you would come on is the Delhi-Jaipur bound flight, right? Okay, then if you're a foreign tourist and you can spend $200, remember, so again, this is where they're getting specific. If you're a foreign tourist and you can spend $200 per head per night for a day of activity, then you're not going to leave in a cheap ass hotel. There's a good chance that you're going to stay in a 5-star hotel, and it's those 5-star hotels that we'll do our affiliation with. And finally, we will distribute flyers and posters around Taj Mahal, Agra, because that is the primary milestone for people who are coming towards Jaipur. That's one of the stops that they all have to make, that they will make, and if they do, then why not? Okay, so when I ask you about what's your plan to reach your customers, please be specific. Please be just as specific as Ooga Booga Nights. Look at the level of detail. Look at the level of attention that has gone into these 5 points on the offline side. Look at combining your plan with both. Look at combining your online plan with your offline plan. And if you do a good job, you will certainly blow away your audience by showing them how well you understand the execution plan of reaching out to your customers. Next, so the other reason, and there is a long list of reasons why Ooga Booga Nights stood out. The other reason was, the visual way where they differentiated their product from the competition. Here's how this is what we're competing with. This is what our competition looks like. This old rusty Jeep. That's what these guys have. That's the best that they can do. And look, this is what we have to offer. This is old Rajasthan. This is the new luxury-oriented Rajasthan, right? So one part of this is the vehicles that we use. Another part was, this is what our competition offers. This is the tent that you will sleep in. This is what it looks like from the outside. And yes, if you really want to rough it, if that's the best that you can do, this is all you can afford, then maybe yes. But if you're looking for a romantic getaway for two, which is likely, if you're looking for a corporate retreat where you actually have your senior executive team spending 2 nights in the desert with you so that you can all bond well together, I don't think they'd appreciate this bed. They may if they have to, or this set of camps, right? That's not what they're looking for. What they're really looking for is something that looks like this. That's what I'm talking about. So competition and Ooga Booga Nights. Now you present this and pitch this, and there is a very good chance that your case is already made. I think it's this visual presentation that really created an enormous impact on the audience that was viewing Ooga Booga Nights as a venture. Right. Now, in the list of, we've spoken about the fact that it's fun, interesting activities, but what do those fun, interesting activities include? So they include quad biking, they include dune bashing, they include luxury cars, they include belly dancing, they include a private safari in Rajasthan, and that's the product offering. And what's the pain? The primary pain was, is there interesting physical stuff for me to do if I'm a young tourist, young foreign tourist, young rich foreign tourist who's coming to Rajasthan and is done with sightseeing at the end of day one? Is there some place where I can go to hang out, where I do 2 days of interesting stuff, which is interesting, fun, and not boring? So within the presentation, we've looked at the 2 things that they did very, very well. They sort of did a good job of identifying who the target market was. They did a great job of showcasing how well they understood or how well they understood the execution of their reaching out to the customer plan. But there is a lot more to what Googa Nights actually got right. I think the first thing that they got right, among many other things that they got right, and one of the first things that they got right on the finance side was they actually broke down their fixed costs. And they also broke down their variable costs. Sorry, their working capital costs, right? So they said fixed cost of about total amount of about $700,000, of which $450 goes into fixed stuffs and about $260 goes in working capital. The most important aspect in this entire analysis was the work that they did on this side, which is the average cost per person. So they said, look, if somebody can give me $75 per person, then I'm done. I would have broken even, because I've covered the cost. I've covered the cost of my cars, covered the cost of my quad bikes, covered the cost of my camp, my office, covered the cost of land lease, covered the cost of car and camp maintenance, covered the cost of salaries, electricity, water, etc., and marketing. My entire operational budget is paid for if I can get $75 per person, right? And it's 75. So if you're doing about $700,000 in total expenses, if I just want to break even, all I need is $75 per person, and I need 1, 2, 3, 4. I need 4 zeros. If I can get 10,000 customers who pay me $75 per person, then I'd break even, right? Alternatively, if you sort of take this analysis, what we just done here, if I take this 75,000, that's what I need if I do 10,000. But if I don't do 10,000, if I can charge, let's say, rather than charging 75, if I can charge $150, then I only need 5,000 customers. And if I need 5,000 customers, then, you know, I basically need how many customers? I need about 400 customers, a year to break even my costs. Right now, 400 customers a year, if I'm open 30 days, is about not 40. If I'm open 30 days, 400 customers is about somewhere between 10 to 12 customers a day. If I get 10 to 12 customers a day who each pay $150, then my costs are covered, and anything on top of that is bonus, right? So they said this $75 per person, this average cost, gives me two ideas. Tells me exactly how much I need, tells me what is the break-even level of customers that I need to cover all of my costs, and gives me some indication of what kind of margins I can generate, and what type of volumes do I need, the minimum volume do I need to at least get my cost out. Anything on top of this would be bonus, right? Now, this level of analysis is unique in the sense that two things that stand out in what they've done. Everybody does, or we hope that everybody does, the break-even analysis on their concept. I think where Googa Nights stood out was how it was presented. They said, look, total amount is 700,000, fixed cost this much, working capital this much, here's the breakdown. They've not given me a multi-year plan. No, notice that. They've not given me a tight Excel spreadsheet that has 30 columns and 40 rows that I can't read. They've simply said, I need 700K, of which 450 is fixed, 260 is working capital, which translates into an average cost of about $75 per person. If I can get this $75 per person, depending on whether I get 10 to 12 customers or 50 customers a day, I will either break even or make an enormous amount of money. If you move on from here to the next step, is the revenue model. So this was their cost structure, and here's the revenue model. The revenue model says that from a product point of view, I have 3 products. The first product is a morning safari. The second product is an evening safari. The third product is an overnight package. And you know what? I am projecting 50 people doing $70 for the morning safari, 50 people doing $120 for the evening safari, and 50 people doing the overnight package at about $250. And so this gets me about 3,500, this gets me about 6,000, this gets me about 12,500. And the average revenue when I combine this together is about 143 per person. So my cost is 75, and look at the volume that I'm projecting. I'm actually saying from a utilization point of view, you know, mornings are tough nobody wants to come in. So here's a steeply, deeply discounted group to bring these guys in, and hope that if they like it well enough so that they can plan on coming back to Rajasthan again and spend an overnight. So somewhere over the next few years they will come back and upgrade to a higher package. Or ideally, if you're lucky, they come for the morning safari and they stay for the overnight. So we actually make the 70 here and the 250 here. We actually end up making $300 from them. Right? That's one. Second is saying, look at my margin. I am doing if I get these volumes, if I realize these volumes, I do about 220 a day. I do about 660 a month. So I break even in a month. I do about 5.5 million a year on these numbers. And even if I stop, even if I don't get to these volumes, even if I get half these volumes, I do about 2.5. If I do a quarter of these volumes, I do 1.25. Remember what my cost structure was? My cost structure is about 700,000. If I do a quarter of this volume, which is about, let's say, 15 people or 12 people, somewhere between 12 to 15 people a day for the morning safari, 12 to 15 for the evening safari, and 12 to 15 for the overnight package. Even if I do that, even then I will end up making money. So the presentation of the Googa Nights financial model, both the financials and the revenues, this is the piece that really helped them stand out. It helped them stand out simply because the way it was presented made it really, really easy for an investor and for a partner to do back of the envelope calculations, to realize how viable this model was and quickly make a decision. Right. So now within Googa Nights, we've looked at 3 or 4 aspects. We started off with the ease with which they identified the pain. Then how? So let's go back. So that's where we started. Quick review. Lesson number 1: the ease with which Googa Night identified the pain in the market. What does a foreign tourist do in India besides sightseeing? Not much. Once you're done with a day of sightseeing, there's not a lot that you can do. So let's look at intense, active, physical list of things that you can do that would allow you to engage the environment, or engage or interact with the environment, and that's your customer profile. 3, look at the outreach plan. Look at how specific, how detailed, and how well thought out the outreach plan is. 4, look at the visual way in which Googa Nights was able to communicate how well and how far they stood apart from their competition. Look at a simple illustration of the product plan, the features that they're offering in their product. Look at the financial model where it zeroes on to cost per person, and then finally look at the revenue per person and the breakdown of the business model, both in terms of utilizing excess hours and resources in the morning, surplus hours and resources in the evening, and using both to convince people to upgrade to the higher product, right? And then in addition to this, there's a lot of other stuff that they got right that we haven't had time to go through, both in terms of, so we offer a first of its kind and absolutely exhilarating desert experience in Rajasthan, leveraging the high number of foreign tourists who come to the site. And we offer quad biking, so that's what quad biking looks like. We offer dune bashing, we offer private safaris, and we offer cultural performances, and a lot more, right? That's Googa Nights. So great presentation, great show, a lot of interesting and valuable lessons to learn from dissecting this presentation, and I hope you found this just as interesting and entertaining that I did when I first saw these guys. So now we'll move on to presentation number 2. Presentation number 3 is Heels on Wheels, and it's very simple, very interesting concept, presented very well. Concept is you're a single woman in Mumbai and you need to get to work. Your present options are a cab, which normally gets stuck in traffic and is not exactly very, not just neither friendly to the environment nor friendly to you. Okay, so it's hot, it's steamy, it's crowded, it's not ventilated. By the time you get to the office, you're a wreck. But much worse than a cab is the public transport option, and that looks even 10 times worse than the cab option. You're a single woman in Mumbai and you're looking for a nice, easy, effective way of getting to work. What do? How do you get there? How about another single working woman who will come pick you up from work, who'll come pick you up from home, and then come pick you up from work to drop you back to home. And she'll use a two-wheeler bike, which is nice and interesting and fun to ride. And because she has a bike, she can always weave her way through the traffic much faster. And then you don't have to go through all of this. This is a no-no. Never have to suffer a crowded bus again. Now look at the sequence. Look at how this is presented. So you do this, and then you do this. So two images that very visually present the problem. Do you need to get work fast? You're a working woman. What are your options? You don't like the taxi, you don't like the bus. Well, okay, here's somebody who's just like you, who is going to be a lot more fun to ride than going through what you've just seen above. So the sequencing makes a huge difference. And then who look at the profile of the customer. So a woman who needs to get to work, one, prefers to travel by herself or just with a friend, and really looks forward to riding a bike. If you have these three attributes, you need to commute to work every day, you like traveling alone every day, and you love riding a bike, then Heels and Wheels is for us. Now the reason why I think I really enjoyed this presentation was the visual presentation of the pain, but then look at these two images and look at this image. The solution stands out in such stark relief that you have to get it, you have to buy it. Now it's a completely different story, if the product is not viable from a logistics point of view. Completely different story if you're from Mumbai and you think this is not a great idea, or that this idea has been tried before and doesn't work. That's the story. But if you're an investor and you see a sequence that says this is the pain, yes, and this is the solution, and here's the profile of the people who we think we need to sell to, I think these three slides in a very, very easy and simple way go out and present a very, very easy and simple solution for your specific need, which is commuting work, for your specific need as a customer who is a single woman or a working woman traveling to work, who prefers to travel alone by herself and enjoys riding a bike. That's Heels on Wheels for you. So that's concept, pitch, idea number 3. Time for us to move on to idea number 4. Idea number 4 is a model or a concept called Rentabag, and the idea behind Rentabag is that you're a socialite, you're a model, you're a party girl, you are a wannabe socialite, model and party girl, and a large part of who you are, your fashion statement, is a bag that you carry to the party. But there is so many bags and there are so many brands that it's difficult for you to actually afford all of them. So from the Gucci's to the Chloe's to the Fendi's to the Chanel's, where are you going to get these, buy these, pick these, or work with these? And that's where Rentabag comes in. What is Rentabag? Rentabag is a service that allows you to, as it says, rent a bag. And what basically means is that Rentabag goes out and buys the bags, one. Then once they've bought the bags, they go out and update their online catalog. The catalog updates the store, and they go out and publicize the service using internet, mall promotions, flyers, etc. They build a membership base. Members check out the online catalog and book a bag. The bag gets delivered to them, and either gets delivered to them or they simply come to the store and pick it up. And then once they've used the bags, once the bags have lived their life, they sell the bag at the end of the year at some salvage value. okay, and then use the proceeds to buy the bag, and the cycle starts all over again. Right. So now, why does this project stand out? Why do I like it? I think one reason why I like it is the commitment, the passion, the credibility with which this project was presented. Number one. Number two, I think the reason why I included this in my portfolio of pitches is I think there are a number of times when students go out and present an idea and a concept, or participants in my class go out and present an idea and a concept, and they can't walk me through the chain. They can't walk me through the underlying business model of what it would take to put it together and make it work. Can't walk into my room and say, give me $10,000 and I'll make magic happen. No, you have to actually show me how do you plan on making that magic happen. And I think where Rentabag really stood out was, I think this was one of the first groups that did an excellent job of showing me how their value chain, their business model, their process worked. Did an excellent job of showing me what was involved in getting this going. And if you look at the sequence, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 8 steps. I don't know if you remember or if you've taken the pitching for startup course, but in the pitching of startup course, there is a point where we go out and say that I want your investor to look at your presentation and say, I can do this. You've simplified it enough for me to see that it can be done. And if I think I can do it, then you certainly know how to do it. And I think if we get to a point where an investor can look at what you're doing and say, I can do this and they can do it, I think a large part of your sales pitch is done. Because the primary stumbling block, the mindset that you have to get through, that you have to break when you pitch to an investor is, I'm not sure these guys can do it. I don't think they can do it. No. I don't think it's possible. I think you're just reaching. I think you're just making things up. I think you're imagining it. And I think it's that mindset that you have to break. And one of the best ways of breaking that mindset is to actually showcase your value chain. And if you can do a good job of showcasing your value chain, I think that's a really important, that's a really valuable, it's a really big step that you can take towards convincing investors to take out the checkbook and sign a check. So I think that's the reason why Rentabag actually won the competition that they participated in, simply because they did an enormous job in simplifying the overall complexity of the project idea, presenting it to the investors. The investor could actually see and say, yes, this would work, I get it, and I think I buy it. The two other things that Rentabag did was they also went out and put together a sample template of their website, stuff that they would actually go out and use. And much more importantly, they actually hit all the relevant customers that they could find in their market and quickly ran a survey, which basically said, how many bags do you buy in a year? And the answer was between 1 and 3. So they actually had the market research, relevant market research. Are designer bags a waste of money? So no. Are there any brands that you know? And the brands do you know? So look at this, Gucci, Chanel, Chloe, and Fendi. And how much will you spend to rent a bag? And the most common amount was about between 1,000 to 1,000 rupees, right? So in addition to the work that they did here, they also had research backing up real answers. They've actually had a thesis about who the customer was and how much he or she would spend, and they use that thesis, they use this data. No, designer bags are not a waste of money. Look at the primary brands that people are familiar with. Look at the range that people are willing to pay for, and how many bags do you actually buy in a year that you actually go through, and would you actually go out and buy more? Okay, so solid research, great presentation of the cycle, product line, and the customer. This was pitch number 4, Rentabag. Again, a great, very memorable, very strong pitch and presentation from one of my earlier batches of global MBA students taking the entrepreneurship course. I think it's now time to move on to pitch number 5. Pitch number 5 is couch potatoes. I still remember when Suchi walked in, both Suchi and Rahul walked in and made this pitch in front of us. The funny thing is, a number of these pitches are from the same batch that made this presentation. So Googa Nights, Rentabag, and Couch Potatoes are actually from the same class. So same session, same class, same group of students. It was a really great day for presentations, and a really tough day for me as a judge to decide, who had done a better job. Now, so what's the concept of couch potatoes? Pitch number 5 stands out for a simple reason that a number of times startups make a very simple mistake, that they go overboard in terms of visually preparing the slide, and then they get lost in the detail of what that slide represents and says. Pitch number 5, couch potatoes, stands out that because even though they used 5 slides to convey their idea, they used under 30 seconds to get through all 5 slides and get us on board with respect to what the final concept was. So here goes. Couch potatoes. We are couch potatoes. Are you bored of sitting in a coffee shop? So what's next? Are you bored of watching a new release that was little time and money value? So what's next? Are you just tired of sitting at home and watching the same routine on TV? What's next? What's next is couch potatoes. What is couch potatoes? Couch potatoes takes food, takes friends, families, and the shows that you really want to see, combines them with an environment or a place where if you don't want to watch a movie or a play, you can simply log in and play games on the favorite gaming platform. Combines that with a very comfortable, very private, very inclusive environment where you can simply make yourself at home. So food, so there we go, sorry. So food, shows, friends and family, games and gaming's platform, and a comfortable at-home environment. That's what couch potatoes is. Couch potatoes allows you to do a lot of things. If you want to watch a movie on a high definition screen, just want to play a game on the same high def screen, just want to have a quick bite and food, just want to hang out with your friends and have a nice time, if you want to watch the latest in or your favorite movies from the past, you just want to chill out, lie down and relax. And much more importantly, since this was based in Bangalore, it's a city filled with young professionals who are all looking to chill out. Doesn't matter what time of the day do you want to do this. All the way, if you want to have a party at 3 o'clock in the night, let it be a party at 3 o'clock at night. If you want to do it at 7 a.m. in the morning, let it be 7 a.m. in the morning. Couch Potatoes is the hangout place in Bangalore. The place where you can go to when you're just bored. You're bored of sitting in the coffee shop, bored of watching a movie, bored of watching the same stuff at home on TV. Come to Couch Potatoes. Here's the cure. Right? So what's the lesson here? The lesson here is, don't be afraid to use the visuals, but don't spend too much time on each slide. You can very easily, very quickly walk through 4 slides, 5 slides that communicate the idea that you want to communicate and get to the point. The point in this specific case was, if you're bored, there is a better option. If you're bored, there's a place that's over 24/7. If you're bored and you want flexibility in what you want to do, come to Couch Potatoes. Alright, so that's idea number 5. Time for us to move on to idea number 6. Idea number 6 is one of those credible concepts that you get to see every once in a while, and when the team that's presenting this idea opens up their presentation, starts presenting, within 30 seconds you know that you're in front of guys who know exactly what they're doing. And I think this was exactly the case when Gulf Oil and Gas came in and presented as part of their executive MBA presentation, I think a few years ago. The pitch was very simple. The pitch was, we're a group of petrochemical and mechanical engineers who've been working in this industry for 10 to 15 years, And I think what we've seen is that every now and then something happens, and when something is basically a failure of a mechanical piece of equipment that then needs to be manufactured. And the problem is that manufacturing doesn't happen in UAE. For manufacturing, you actually have to place an order in Europe, where the part gets machined, gets shipped, and then comes over, and it takes about 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes even longer, depending on how complex, how heavy, how sophisticated the part in question is. Right, so that's the pitch. So their pitch was, to help customers deal with this problem, we suggest that we can actually go out and create an organization or an entity that allows us to manufacture petrochemical equipment, replacement petrochemical equipment, or replacement parts for petrochemical equipment here in UAE. That's the overall pitch. And from a presentation point of view, the pitch was, well, here's what happened. What exactly is mechanical failure in a petrochemical complex? One is faulty design. So bad design leads to vessel failure leading to loss of production, improper testing, and much more importantly, if all of this leads to a delay in project, then up to 10% of project cost in penalties. And what is the impact in terms of losses? If your rig shuts down, if your petrochemical compound shuts down, you're looking at about $100,000 in losses every day, in production losses every day. Yeah. The problem is that, if you place an order for a part, since it's not manufactured in UAE, and since it's heavy and unwieldy in terms of its dimensions, you're looking at anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks of replacement time. So your plant is out for 12 weeks. 100,000 US dollars a day times 12 weeks times 7 days. You do the math. Okay, that's a very large number. If you take this to the next logical step, you're basically saying, if I can create a manufacturing facility for these components and these pieces in UAE, look at the value creation, look at the value of my proposition for my customers. Look at how easy is it for me to go out and sell this. I think the reason why I include this in one of my favorite presentations is because of the graphical illustration to showcase the pain. This is what happens when things go wrong. The value proposition, very clear-cut, very simple value proposition. $100,000 a day. There you go. $100,000 a day, 4 to 12 weeks, lots of money. But I think the other reason why I like this project and this concept and this idea is that, just like Rentabag, if you think in terms of the process that is followed, the process is actually quite complex. And I think once again, Gulf Oil and Gas, the great thing that they did was they actually showed us the reason why the process is so complex, and the reason why it takes such a long time, the reason why it takes 4 to 6 weeks, and the reason why it made sense to build something here. And again, the reason why these guys were petrochemical and mechanical engineers. They knew exactly what's required in making a part. From steel melting, to ingot making, to forging, to heat treatment, to machining, to mechanical testing, to welding overlay, to welding, to NDE, to assembly, to shipment, to hydrostatic testing, and the final NDE, and then shipment to the job site. They understood what was required, and they were able to present that in a very simple and yet very powerful manner to all of us. They didn't stop here. In addition to showing this process, they also showed us, here's the stuff that needs to be built: the manifolds, the pressure vessels, the shell and tube heat exchangers, the final tube heat exchangers, and our primary potential customers are refineries, power plants, petrochemical entities, offshore platforms, chemical terminals, and process plants. Right? So 3 solid points from this presentation: the value proposition, so the pain, the value proposition, the process, and the product and the market. Great presentation, great pitch, very simple, very very simple presentation of a complex idea done in a very to the point and short fashion. We're now down to our last and final pitch, which is pitch number 6, and this is a pitch that was made also in an executive MBA presentation. And I've included this in my list of favorite presentations for 2 reasons. One is it's a pitch that's focused on a specific ethnic community, which is Uttaranchali migrants in India, who are found all over India as well as outside of India. Concept very simple. Uttaranchali migrants use certain food products that they're very fond of using, which are difficult to find. So the group in question had actually set up a production facility all the way back in Uttaranchal, where the produce was produced, cleaned, shipped, and then distributed all across India. So if you're from Uttaranchal and you wanted to use the specific product for consumption as part of your daily, weekly, or celebratory meals, you could very easily do that. The reason why this product is here, the reason why this concept and this pitch is here is, one, because of what they're selling. So anybody can say I'm selling pulses, spices, fruits and vegetables, which is difficult to find elsewhere. But where these guys actually went out and stood apart was the visual presentation of the underlying product. Here's what we're selling. You can't get this stuff at your neighborhood friendly store. That's the reason why it stands out. That's the reason why we think we can do a good job of distributing and selling this all across the world. But the second reason, and I think the real reason why this presentation stood out, and I think this is something that almost all the judges who'd seen this presentation really appreciated, was there are very few plans that you see that come with a 10-year plan, and these guys did. So the first phase of their plan was a 5-year plan where they looked at building the relevant infrastructure for cleaning and packaging products, then transportation facilities, then starting off with 12 retail stores in areas where there was a concentration of Uttaranchali migrants, promotional activities, and then home delivery service. And then the second phase, the next 5 years, was increasing the number of stores, focusing on the non-Uttaranchali population that uses the same products, doing an R&D setup for processing foods, and a cold storage hub between cities and different villages. So 2 reasons: very focused ethnic target market, very simple products, visual presentation of the products, and a 10-year plan. So we've now gone out and presented 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 presentations in total, starting off with Vivo, where the idea was how do you present a complex concept using visuals. Then we moved on to Googa Nights, where we looked at the customer profile, the competition, the financial and business model, and again the use of visual tools to present a complex concept. Again the usage of visual tools to present an interesting concept. Then we looked at Heels on Wheels, where we looked at the sequence that we used to juxtapose, visually showcase the pain involved, and then compare that pain with the solution, a very attractive solution. Rentabag, both in terms of their ability to actually go out and touch the customer and get some feedback and test their hypothesis before they actually came out and presented, as well as their illustration of the complex project that was sitting behind the business model, so that we could be comfortable with our belief that this group could deliver, because they understood what was required in implementing the project. Couch potatoes in terms of 5 slides, 1 short pitch in under 30 seconds, getting a concept out. Used a fair bit of visual information but did not get stuck or bogged down in the details. The Uttaranchal product that focused on a focus on a very ethnic product for a very ethnic group, but the reason why it stood out was because of their ability to actually think 10 years ahead and then show their 10-year plan at a very credible level. Gulf, because of their Gulf manufacturing, or Gulf oil and gas, because of their ability to establish credibility from the minute they stepped into our presentation. I hope these 7 presentations, and rather the dissection of these 7 presentations, has given you enough information to incorporate some of these lessons into your own pitches, combined with our Pitching for Startup course. The Pitching Case Studies course should allow you to make very, very powerful, very, very strong, very, very effective and impactful presentations as part of your interaction with both investors, customers, partners, and employees. I hope you found this useful and entertaining. This is Jawwad Farid signing off for financetrainingcourse.com. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for trying financetrainingcourse.com, an online collection of risk, Basel, treasury, and portfolio management resources created by risk and treasury professionals.